From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Ticats Today with Brayden Neville.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ticats Today for this Monday, October 30th, 2023. And joining me on today's show to break down Saturday's final regular season game between the Ticats and the Alouettes is Coach Sal. Coach, the Ticats closing out the season against Montreal, suffering a close loss to the Owls. What are your initial thoughts on this final game of the season?
Well, first of all, I thought it was a terrible football game. There was a game of errors. On Hamilton's side, you can't have 5 turnovers and 10 penalties and expect to win a game. Mm-hmm. But given the fact that they had so many different guys playing in different positions, it really, the whole game was punctuated by 2 big special teams plays. Mm-hmm. And whenever you make changes to a roster, the first group on the field that's affected is special teams. And we saw that in this game from both sides. There was the return by McAllister and then the return again by Montreal on a punt. So overall, it came out pretty much the way it was expected to.
You're going to have a bunch of guys playing in spots they don't normally play. A lot of those guys getting their first starts of the season. It makes sense that you're going to have some error. One guy who got in the first half was Bo Levi Mitchell. He went 5 for 10 for 50 yards in the game. What did you think of him? He was a little more mobile maybe than we're used to seeing Bo. It seemed like he was escaping the pocket a lot, but what did you see from him, Coach?
The biggest issue we're going to have is the game upcoming. Did Bo do enough to satisfy the coaching staff that he should be the starter in that game? Now, I believe he will start because they've shown that with him starting and Schultz coming in afterwards, the team picks up the pace. But as far as Bo goes, that's not a stellar performance by any means. There was only 1 first down in the period of time he was in the ball game. They were 0 for 8 on second down conversions. So, effectively, they weren't moving the ball. It was the defense that was saving them. And go back to the idea that the first score of the ball game that the Ticats gave up was a result of a fumble on the kickoff.
Yeah.
So, defensively, they were doing okay. As far as Bo goes, obviously they were satisfied with him because they took him out of the ballgame.
Yeah. And if you were coaching this team and you're going into playoffs, are you going back to that 1-2 punch, the Bo and Matt 1-2 punch, possibly having 2 quarterbacks play in the East Semi?
I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah.
The key being you can't get behind early in these ball games. You can't come from behind every time in these ball games, and we've proven that over the years. But we've seen the success rate that they've had when they've allowed Bo to go into the ball game and start the ball game, and then have Schultz come in afterwards. So, I would assume that that's the way to go for this next game.
I agree. I mean, it seems like it's worked so far this season. I wanted to touch on Taylor Powell. He got in that second half for the Ticats, but as a whole, he's most outstanding rookie for the Ticats. He finishes the season here. What did you think of him in this game? And not only that, but this whole year and what he's been able to do to come in as a true freshman or a true rookie coming right from Eastern Michigan?
Well, I think Powell's handled himself well. He was 10-19 in that ball game. It was only 106 yards. Now, the 2 intercepts, one was a ball that bounced off a helmet.
That was crazy.
The other was a desperation type pass. So throw those 2 things out. I think Powell, as a rookie, as you say, really showed himself well through this season and has really cemented a place on the roster for next year based on what he's done. Now, I do not expect him to be suited up for this next ball game unless something is wrong with Matthew Schultz. And I don't think there is. I think he'll be healthy. So Powell's seen probably his last play for this year.
And you have Kyle Oxley. He's good with those short yardage plays too. So there's got to be one man left out there. We mentioned fumbles and how many fumbles there were in this game, especially for the Ticats. But do you think that was a little bit of the Ticats being sloppy with the ball, or were there just some really good hits by that Alouettes defense and special teams?
Well, I think it was a combination, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, the ball that was poked out of McAllister's hands to start the ball game The defender did a great job. He put his hand right on the football.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the backs are taught, to hug it tight, not allow that to happen. The other one, I think, was Keandre Smith downfield, where he was struggling to get more yardage, and they were 2 or 3 guys poking at the ball. So, sloppy play. That's the only thing you can say about it. But as you said, we had fumbles in the ball game. I think we had the 2 interceptions and we had 1 on downs. So that when you got 5 turnovers, you're in trouble.
We mentioned McAllister. He did have that fumble to start the game, but he had that incredible second quarter field goal return. What did you think of that play and what he's been able to do this season, being so explosive on that special teams and that kick return team?
And 2 things came out right away to me on that play. On the return out of the end zone, Jermaine Thurman made the first block that allowed him to get out of the end zone. Thurman also made the last block on the last man down the field that had a chance to make a tackle on McAllister. So give Thurman all kinds of credit. I mean, he's running with one of the fastest guys on the team and staying up with him for 80 yards down the field. Great job, a great return by McAllister. And good for the special teams guys that they didn't make any bad blocks on that and allowed him to get that touchdown.
That's the second time he's done that this season. He had a couple kick returns called back for touchdowns, but I think McAllister it's really shown this year how explosive he can be. There's one play in this game that I had to look at it like 10 different times because I didn't really understand what was going on. But there's that dribble kick that the Owls performed in the first quarter at the line of scrimmage to get a new set of downs. What was going on with that? Is that something you like to see here in the CFL?
No, it's been in the CFL ever since the CFL's been there.
Yeah.
Any punt that crosses the line of scrimmage can be recovered by the same individual, and that gives you a first down. It's using the rules effectively. It was second down and long situation. They had done it before in a previous game.
I think against Ottawa.
Hamilton was aware of it, but how would you stop it? You would have to be on the line of scrimmage to stop it, and then they wouldn't do it. It's a play that it's unique to the CFL. Let's put it that way.
I mean, watching the play, I know it's been around forever, but it for some reason it looks so different on that play. So I had to rewatch that a couple of times. The Ticats defense.
Think about those people in America that were watching the game and trying to figure that one out.
I was seeing a bunch of posts being shared on CBS Sports, and then people were asking Canadians, like, what's going on with this play? Could someone explain this to me? And it was kind of funny to see. But yes, definitely a CFL, very unique to the CFL play. What did you think of a couple of those new faces we saw stepping in on defense?
I don't think they played that bad. I didn't see a lot out of Vereen, the corner, taking Leonard's spot. To me, that didn't show up a whole lot. When I looked at the front line, I thought the front line played well. I thought Teddy Laurent, coming back from injury, played well in that front line. So, but those guys are all guys that have played during the season.
Yeah.
We're talking about Diallo and Davis and Conbo and Wynn. All those guys have played. So nothing there stood out. I was not overly impressed with Walker in the receiving corps. I don't know that he was able to do anything outstanding in that game that showed me anything. Fleet Davis didn't get much of an opportunity. I think 3 times he touched the ball. So those, and that brings me to Thomas Earlington. Earl had a great game. He coming in the backfield. I forget. I think he had 12 carries for 80 yards in the ball game. So good for him. But overall, I'm looking forward to what the roster will look like when we go back to Montreal this Saturday.
I think the most important thing in this game was the Ticats were able to stay pretty healthy, which was worrisome, especially with that one sack. We saw Bo Levi Mitchell go down. I think everyone was holding their breath, but I think the Ticats did a pretty good job at not losing anyone super important. Not saying anyone's not important, but it seemed like they were able to stay pretty healthy. Who was your game ball for this game?
Well, Thomas Earlington is my game ball. I had he and Thurman right up there in the top as far as the game, but early came into that ball game and showed what he can do. When he was playing previously as a full timer, playing in slot, playing in at tailback, etc., he showed that he's a good, solid backup for Butler, and I suspect he'll be on the roster for this game. One of the things I did notice in that game that has to be corrected this week is with Montreal's punter, Zima, able to punt the ball away from McAllister. We're going to have to put two guys back. Now, Godwin is one of those guys who's on the roster that could do it. The other guy is Woods, who's on the practice roster. If they could find a way to get him on, put two returners back on all punt situations, we may be able to break one of those punts.
Honestly, I didn't even think of that, but it would be cool that, especially Lawrence Woods too, because he's, what he can do on that kick return. I think they would have to do some maneuvering with the designated American, and there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. But yeah, it would be interesting to see if they could do that 2-man system. This week we have the East semifinal. What needs to be this team's mindset this week as they prepare for this game?
Well, number one, you've got to erase the fact that you've lost 3 times to this team. You've played them well. You've played them tight. You played them tough all along. Now you've got to go to the next step. You've got to make sure of everything you're doing. You got to cut down on the penalties. You got to cut down on the turnovers, and you got to move the football down the field. Now, Fajardo can be sacked. We know that. In the first quarter that he was in, Hamilton had 3 sacks against him. He's the most sacked guy in the league. So you've got to design what you're going to do up front. With Fajardo going the full length of that game, you've got to design what you're going to do to get him on the ground. And that's going to be very important, the pass rush. And summarily on the other side of the line, the offensive line has got to be prepared for all of Noel Thorpe's different fronts and stunts that he runs. And he will continue to blitz throughout the ball game. So preparation is going to be the name of the game going into this week.
Well, Coach, I, as always, love to hear from you, love to get your feedback. And we're now entering the playoffs. It's the best time of year. It's going to be an exciting one here in Montreal. And once again, thank you very much for joining me, Coach Sal.
You're more than welcome, Brayden. Go Cats.